Welcome back to the 2-minute warning. Back on the topic of the NFL. As you all know by now, Cam Newton has been released by the New England Patriots. Today, Jay and I are going to be looking at whether or not the Washington football team should pursue Cam and whether or not he would be a good fit there. Before we get into the video, question of the day, and that is whether or not you guys think the Washington football team will make the playoffs. Comment down below what you think, and at the end of the video, you'll hear our answer. But Jay, do you think Cam will make a good fit in Washington?
I think Cam should at the bare minimum be on the radar for the Washington football team. The only thing that kind of strikes my mind right away is Fitzpatrick likes to be the guy, whether he is or isn't a number one quarterback or a starting quarterback in the league, that I should say. We remember last year when he was starting, he was not happy with Tua being brought in, and then he went to Washington because he knew he would be the starter. Yes, he knows Taylor Heineke is behind him and he has somewhat of a short leash, but he doesn't want more competition compared to what he was talking about. So that is in the back of my mind. But considering the whole team, what's best for everyone as far as winning in this team, I think Cam Newton is worth taking a flyer on. If Cam is willing to accept the role, we'll give you the tryout. You'll be on the roster, but we're not guaranteeing any starting role. And if that happens, you have to be okay with the role you fill of just being a locker room guy, a heartfelt guy, a guy that has a chance to step in because Fitzpatrick has his ups and downs. An opportunity may come and may not, but you have to be okay with that. They really just need to tell Cam this is going to be an incentive-based contract, possibly a veteran league minimum. But the biggest thing is swallowing the pill and understanding you have a high likelihood of being the backup. But overall, no matter who it is, Fitz, Cam, they just need consistency. They don't need up and down Fitz. They don't need MVP Cam. They just need a quarterback that can game manage. You know, that's kind of a negative term for quarterbacks nowadays. But that's really all Washington needs with the weapons they got and the defense they have to hold it down.
Yeah, as most people are, I'm completely sold on Washington's defense. There's nothing that needs to be really fixed on that end of the football. In the current situation, I picture Fitzpatrick as being the starter, and I'm really not a fan of any team that relies on Fitzpatrick to be their starting quarterback. If you look at last year in Miami, he works well in a situation where he doesn't need to be the starter, but is there to try to patch things up if things go south with the starter. That's where Fitzpatrick is valuable, but obviously he's bounced around to half the teams in the league and never solidified any position at any of them because he's not a great starting quarterback. He's a great guy, whatever. So I like to see any situation really where Fitzpatrick is not the number one starter for the team. They have a good enough defense really to go all the way if they can get their quarterback situation solidified, I think. So, and the same thing goes for Taylor Heineke. Yes, he had a great performance in last year's divisional round, or was it? Wild card against the Bucs. So yes, he's had some skill, but I still don't have faith in him as a starter. So that leaves the question of Cam Newton, a playmaker. Yes, of course, especially in his prime, he made any play you needed him to. So that's going to be special to see if he ends up in Washington. But you make a good point: is the Washington football team can get away with just a safe game managing quarterback and be good with that. So I don't quite think Fitzpatrick fills that role because he's just inconsistent enough to not be safe and reliable, which is what I think the Washington football team needs. But on the other hand, neither is Cam Newton. He's not a guy you can rely on for no turnovers and safe throws and just playing efficient, smart football. That's not what Cam does either. So, yes, Washington football team is in need of a quarterback that is going to be solid enough to be the starter. But Cam's the guy that's going to try to force plays and be the star and on a team like Washington with that defense, that's just not what they need.
Yeah, and just because earlier I said that Cam Newton should kind of be on the radar of Washington, I just think they should keep it in the back of the mind. Not saying they need to pursue it or absolutely should sign him, but they should at least just think about it. But we do have to remember this offseason, Cam Newton was a free agent. Ryan Fitzpatrick was a free agent. Not saying those two were battling for Washington. You know, maybe Cam was set all along on coming back to New England. But if Washington wanted him, they could have reached out then. And we have to remember the head coach of Washington is Ron Rivera, and that could be one of two things. You know, I don't know the exact relationship between Cam and Ron Rivera, but if they're on good terms, this could be Ron Rivera saving Cam Newton, giving him his one last slight at-bat, slight chance of being a starting guy, maybe getting one last $1 million payday. Or this could be bad news because they're on bad terms and Rivera wants nothing to do with Cam at all. Again, I don't know the relationship, but that is definitely a factor. Either way, like we said, you're going to get inconsistency through the air with Fitzpatrick or inconsistency on the ground with Cam Newton, and I just don't think Washington wants another project. They knew taking in Fitzpatrick there would be a risk. I don't know if they want to take any more. To me, if they wanted to make a quarterback move, they would look into trading for a Kirk Cousins, bringing him back to Washington, trading for a Jimmy G, where you don't have to sell the farm for Deshaun Watson. You just need to trade a couple pieces away in order to have that game manager that could take you to the next level. We've seen time and time again, great rosters can get there with a mediocre to above average quarterback play. Jimmy G with the Niners recently, Jared Goff with the Rams recently. We see Tua being put together and held together and carried by his roster per se. He's kind of an outlier because it's such a small sample size, but still, Washington, they just need consistency. They need a game manager. They just need above average play to hit that next level. And Cam, even at his peak right now, he can, of course, play at above average, but not at above average week in and week out. I don't want to compare him to Russell Wilson, MVP Russ, but we've seen Russell Wilson, even the greatest players, have their up and downs, and Cam Newton's just a washed-up version of Russell Wilson at this point in his career.
Yeah, I want to go back to what I said earlier, is either or Fitzpatrick or Cam Newton has their downsides, but I think it also is very realistic that the two would work well together, just like Fitzpatrick and Tua. Last year, the two of them combined, Tua by no means had a great season. Fitzpatrick definitely didn't have a consistently good season, but somehow managed to come in the second half of games where Tua struggled and push the Dolphins to a win. And then the Dolphins went 10-6, and if it wasn't a year where every team in the AFC was playoff caliber, that's a playoff team all the way. So I think that there is definitely value in a situation with Fitzpatrick and then a younger kind of opposite style mobile quarterback in the mix. So I think, kind of to backtrack on what I said earlier, maybe having them both on the same roster would definitely be helpful. But I would hate to see one replace the other because I think they would need each other to complement their playing styles.
Yeah, and again, it's a thing you got to feel out. Ron Rivera, Cam Newton, if they were to be buddy-buddy again, they know each other. They would understand. They would be able to have that tough talk, that tough discussion of realizing, look, we don't know what you're going to be, but we'll give you the tryout. I don't want to call it a Tim Tebow tryout, but we'll give you the opportunity to contribute to this team. And I do think Cam, at the very least, could be a great locker room guy if he was willing to swallow that pill and understand that is his role, to be the locker room guy, to be the backup. And he has to understand, Cam Newton, this might be his best shot. Because any other backup job, most quarterbacks are consistent. If you go back up Dak Prescott in Dallas, you're relying on an injury that probably isn't going to happen again. Or if you go back up Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, they're going to keep him healthy. Ryan Fitzpatrick, you're not relying on an injury, but we haven't seen a lot of high-level consistency out of Fitzpatrick. So this is his best shot to really apologize to Rivera if they're on bad terms, whatever it is, fix it out, to really have one last shot. He's been given a second chance in New England. He's messed that up. But we also have to consider Ron Rivera in Washington. They've been in disputes about the vaccination. Ron Rivera wants his whole team to be vaccinated. The players aren't all for it. Cam Newton, clearly a guy that doesn't want to be vaccinated. He's not with the protocols to the full nth degree. I don't know if that will be a factor as well. I'm sure it'll be something. Either way, there's a lot of factors to contribute, but to me, this is going to be a lot of Cam Newton have to realizing he has to be the bigger man in this situation.
Yeah, looking at other places that I think are reasonable to assume he could end up in, I think maybe Denver, but they're happy at the moment with Teddy and Drew Lock. Maybe Houston, but I don't think Cam's going to want to entertain the thought of going to Houston, so maybe Dallas, but you don't want to be a backup to Dak because you're really not going to get much playing time. So my point is, I think Washington, of the realistic choices, might be the best for Cam because he's got a shot at getting splitting starting time with Fitzpatrick, and you also have a top in the league defense, one of the top in the league.
The biggest thing, if Cam is willing to be a backup, this is easy. He could go
that's true.
Any 32
but I
team.
think most of us, at least I don't think he's going to be happy with that.
Yeah, exactly. Or hence, he probably would have been a backup last year and wouldn't have signed New England. So we'll just have to see what he does. He may choose retirement over being a backup. We'll just have to see.
For sure. That's all for our video. Again, comment below whether or not you think Cam would fit well in Washington. But back to the question today. Will Washington win the NFC East? And if not, who do you think is going to do it?
I think they got a good shot based on that defense, arguably the best front four. They're going to be relying on Jamin Davis, a rookie linebacker, to really step up in that position, but we've seen it before. Devin White with the Bucs stepped up pretty well his rookie year. In the secondary, I like what they added in free agency. I just love that defense. I always put it in the back of my head, the way I put it is theoretically, if the powerhouse defense of Washington canceled out with the powerhouse offense of Dallas, I'm betting on Washington offense over Dallas's defense. I know that's simplifying things, but that's just the way I see it.
Yeah, I'm going to go the other way. I think football shows great defenses are going to end up coming out on top. But I think Dallas's offense will be good enough to win the division. And I think their defense, they drafted defensively, will be enough to pick up some of the slack. So I'm going to go Dallas. But that's all for the video, guys. Thanks for watching. 2-Minute Warning.